Hey everybody, welcome back to Whiskey Bravo Adventures. Today we are doing a trail cleanup with the Bakersfield Trailblazers Off-Road Club. The cleanup is going to be on Sherman Pass Trail and also the North Meadow Trail. We got here about 8:15 in the morning and met up with some other guys from the group and also some guys from the U.S. Forest Service. I want to extend a sincere thank you to the U.S. Forest Service. They were a great group of Forest Service workers that were with us and helping us on the trail and allowing us to help them. And it was great. They were all very friendly and very helpful and just really good people to hang out with for the day. So here we are pulling in, and we're just going to check in and get started.
Okay, you guys are way ahead of me.
So we split up into two groups, and the group number one was going to actually enter onto the Sherman Pass trailhead right here and work their way up to the intersection of the North Meadow Trail. So we're driving back up Sherman Pass
All
Road
right, we're going slow.
to get onto the North Meadow Trail, which again
Yes.
works into the intersection
Go,
of
partner.
Sherman Pass Trail and North Meadow Trail. So we're going to pull over here. We're just north of the North Meadows Trail. We're going to pull over here where there's some room, and I'm going to air down my tires and disconnect my front sway bar. And the U.S. Forest Service is going to be offloading their side by side. So we'll be here for just a minute. All right, we are all set. We turned around and just drove a short distance back to the North Meadows trailhead. So we're going to get on. This is the group two. I was with group two, and we're going to get on the North Meadow trailhead here. And you'll see very quickly that it is really uh, grown over. It was a really wet winter this year for us, which is not normal. And the vegetation just took over. I mean, it was really bad through this. This is the lead up to the gate, and then probably for like a quarter mile past the gate, it was pretty tight with brush. So we're just going to work our way through the gate here, and then we'll be driving up the trail to a certain point, and then I'm going to stop and start brushing the trail back. So come along for the ride. Here we go.
I'm just going to come right back down here and start. Hey, Trina, do you hear us on the company channel?
So we're just continuing up North Meadows Trail here, past the gate. The trail conditions this year for this trail are actually really good.
Channel
There was almost
76, I
no
believe.
washout on the trail that I could see, and this trail I think is actually one of the easiest ways to get up to the lookout tower. The Sherman Pass trailhead where we started at, where we met with the other members of the group, that area is pretty thick
So
with
they
brush.
keep an eye on the lower road, but Steven and Mari got to go up to the
Just
cool
waiting for that
road.
radio chatter to get over with. The Sherman Pass trailhead is usually really thick with brush, similar to what you're seeing here. But I can't remember the actual trail, and it could be different this year. But the North Meadows Trail, if you come in on that trailhead, this trail is actually relatively easy. There's a little bit of an incline in the beginning, but that's probably the most difficult part.
Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
And this trail will take you all the way into the intersection of Sherman Pass Jeep Trail.
You guys good to brush this area could do some brushing all the way back to the gate already. Okay, well, as you come up past the first tree line, you'll see kind of a tight spot. This might be good for you back 3 to brush, and we'll kind of continue ahead and look for trees.
So here we're already starting to clear some of the brush back. It wasn't really that tight right in this specific area, but the brush was encroaching onto one of the sides of the trail. So we're just cutting it back to kind of keep it off the trail itself. If it grows too much onto the trail, then it's going to start pushing people off of the trail somewhat. And the whole point is to stay on the trails. So we just went through. There's a lot of brush laying down here on the road. That's all from us brushing it back. So, and this is actually a fairly steep incline. The camera never does justice to how steep these inclines are, but I think it was more of a hike getting back up to the Jeep than it was actually doing the brush work. That's how steep it is. And with the elevation, right now we're probably up around high 8,000 or low 9,000 area. So it's pretty high. The air is pretty thin if you're not used to it. I'm not used to it. So yeah, it was a hike getting back up the trail. So we brushed up that area and now we're just trying to catch up with the rest of the group. We had a couple saws in the front of the group and they were just pushing forward looking for logs. There's the cabins.
Brush cut right through there.
There, the saws were hard at work there, clearing that initial tree.
Oh no, it breaks out again.
And the rest of the trail, this portion of the trail wasn't really bad for brush at all.
At least we're not eating dust.
It's not gonna pinstripe your vehicle at all. It's encroaching on the trail, but it's low and it's not to the point where you can't fit through it. There's plenty of room. And here too, you can see like the grass and the weeds are pretty high, but there's nothing really encroaching the trail itself that would cause any kind of pinstriping. It's pretty good. I think we had stopped back there actually and did a little bit more brush work.
Snow over here.
But here we turned on to I believe this is called the North Meadows Spur. This is the way to go up to the lookout tower. And it didn't take us long to find a little bit of snow. That was about maybe 18 inches deep right there, but we were able to push through that and just kind of kept trying to push our way up to the tower. But we didn't get too much further and we encountered a massive amount of snow on the trail and next to the trail. So let's stop and take a look at that. It was crazy. It's been really warm for about a month now and there's still a fair amount of snow up here. So check this out. So here we're at least at 9,000, probably 9,000 feet, and yeah, the snow pile was massive. At one point, it's hard to see on camera, but at one point it had to be at least 20 feet deep. It was a huge mound of snow. And at this point, there was no way we were going to be able to push through this. It was pretty hard, but we just couldn't push through it. So we decided to go ahead and turn around, and now we're backtracking down the North Meadows Spur back down to North Meadows Trail, and then we're going to take North Meadow Trail back out to where it intersects with Sherman Pass Road. So a little bit of snow up in front of us there yet. We're back on the North Meadows Trail, but up here we ran into a pretty good sized log. It was probably a down tree. It was probably at least like 36 inches in diameter. So we're gonna get out here, take a break and get out, and we get to watch the saws work now. So here you have a tree that had fallen probably a long time ago, but was at one point probably still intact, crossed over another portion of a down tree. And what had happened is the tree on top had actually split. And those are sometimes called widowmakers. When those crack, if you're near them, it will take you out if it hits you. So they got rid of that, and then this was the log that was actually this was the tree that was actually crossing the trail. So they're going to get to work on this tree now, and like I said, the sawyers are going to do their thing, and I'm just going to take some video and take a little break. So let's just watch them work for a bit. So while we're watching them work on this tree, I'll explain a little bit about why we're cutting the tree. Obviously, you can see that there's room to drive around that tree. However, driving around the tree means that you're going off the trail. And one of the cardinal rules of off-roading is to stay on the trails. They want you to stay on the trails because, believe it or not, there are endangered animal species in some areas, and there's also endangered vegetation. So the designated trails are in areas that are able to be traveled without encroaching onto anything that might be endangered. So even though there's room to drive around this tree, that would take you off the trail, and that breaks one of the cardinal rules of off-roading in the National Forest. So every year, before the trails open, it takes a coordinated effort between the U.S. Forest Service and a lot of volunteers, usually, mostly off-road clubs or other environmental groups possibly, but usually it seems to be the off-road clubs. It takes a lot of coordination, a lot of effort for those volunteers to go up onto the trails and clear back the brush and cut the trees that have fallen and push the trees off the trails. And it's an incredible amount of work. It's usually fairly warm. It was in the high 70s today. And this is the soonest that we could get up onto the trail because of all the snowfall we had. So again, it's a tremendous amount of work, but once the work is done, the trails are open for everybody. So if you haven't ever volunteered to help clear a trail and you do enjoy using the trails, think about it and think about maybe coming out and helping to clear the trail. It usually only takes a day. If you have a good enough group, it'll take one day to clear the trail, and then after you clear the trails are going to be open and we can all use them. And there will be no need to drive off the trails again. Cardinal rule in the forest, in the National Forest, do not drive off of designated trails.
Yeah. Calm down, damn it. Yeah, that one. I don't think. There. All right, perfect.
All right, so the saws took care of that fallen tree and cut a good chunk out of it, and it just rolled and got it off the trail. So the trail's open. There's more than enough room to get through this now, and there's no need to drive off the trail. So we're back on our way toward the intersection of Sherman Pass Road, and we're just going to see what else we get into.
Oh yeah, it's a nice tree. These are all big trees that are falling.
So last year when we drove the Sherman Pass 4x4 trail, we entered the trail at the Sherman Pass Jeep trailhead, which was where we all met up. Um, from what I remember, I don't remember that part of the trail being all that bad as far as the trail itself. It did have a lot of brush, and I do remember getting a fair amount of pinstriping, but the trail wasn't that bad. There was one water
Oh, I bet
crossing
that's
last
easier.
year
It's not.
on that end of the trail. It wasn't really bad. It had a little bit of a drop off, but it really wasn't that bad. It wasn't very wide. It just had a little bit of a drop off. So, but nothing crazy. I don't have a super built up Jeep. I have like a 2.5 inch lift, and I'm actually still running the stock tires. So it wasn't an issue last year. But
Sandwiches?
anyway, we finally got done clearing the
Yeah.
trail up to
Probably
this
should have bought
point,
more of
and
those,
we're
but
gonna break here for lunch. This is the intersection of the North Meadows Trail and the Sherman Pass Road Trail. So we're gonna stop here and grab some lunch. So after getting something to eat, we had found
Yeah,
out
there's a
that
deer up here.
Group
there's
One,
a deer
which
up there.
started at the Sherman Pass Trailhead where we all met up, they were still struggling to get through the trail. From what we understand, there was just a
Hey, what's
tremendous
up,
amount of
man?
brush work that had to be done, and that was really, really,
Just trying to help you out.
creating a
And
lot
that
of
help is much
stopping
appreciated.
time to clear brush. So some of us we
That's
split up. Our second group split up. A couple of them went out another trail
most
out
everything.
toward a mine to
All right,
see
Jake,
what was out
everybody
that
look over to
end,
the right. You can see multiple
and
crews
a
coming down
handful
that
of
way.
us
Which
started
side? I
heading back
mean,
the Sherman Pass
just some
Jeep
green and
Trail
red.
to see if we could find out where the first group was and see if we can help them get up to the intersection so they can have lunch. So here we are on the Sherman Pass Jeep Trail, and as you can see, it's pretty overgrown again this
Hey,
year.
guys, how you doing?
The Group One was actually just up ahead of us here, so it didn't take us very long. They were pretty close to being up to the lunch area, the intersection where we took lunch, but it definitely didn't hurt to backtrack and try to clear some of this brush. Again, this is a prime example of what you're going to see probably from the trailhead, the Sherman Pass Jeep Trail trailhead up to the intersection is probably going to be a lot like this. Um, it just gets really overgrown with brush. So group one finally got up to the intersection area here and had lunch, and then
Still getting.
group one decided that they wanted to go see the snow up on
Up
the
here where
North
the
Meadow spur.
trail makes the
So they
fork,
took off
go to
to
the
that,
right. It's the
but
proper
the rest of
trail.
us,
Gotcha. Right.
well, not the rest of us, but Uh, myself and a couple other of club members, we had been camping out up there the night before, so we just decided to go ahead
Hey,
and head
Jimmy, you
out,
got a
head back
copy?
to our camp. It had been a pretty long day, and we were both pretty tired, and so we headed back. So this is going to be Sherman Pass. This is a continuation of the Sherman Pass Jeep Trail
Jeremy is outside the
that
food brick.
heads out toward the intersection with the Corral Meadows Trail. Now, I want to say this section of the Sherman Pass Jeep Trail I do not care for. It has a lot
This
of
is my turn.
rock, and
It is for Steve.
the rocks
Oh, sorry.
are sharp, and there's a lot of variation in the rocks as far as the size. So yeah, it gets a little crazy here.
This is just rocky, but it's
And
not like
if you keep
you have to
watching,
turn the car over or
you'll
anything.
be able to
Yeah.
see just what happens sometimes
Just have
when
to take
you're
it slow.
traversing rocks on a trail like this.
And they said they had to cut like 40 trees. So I was like, geez. Okay.
scratch what I said about not having to get over it.
Yeah. A lot rockier than I remember it. I do remember rocks, but I don't remember this many.
Well, at least we only had to go till 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
With your diff on that. Hit my front diff.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if there's any way to avoid it. Kind of.
Hey, Steve, you just bought the tire.
And there you go. I don't know if you heard that radio call, but one of the club members behind me,
And like, just
Jason,
keep
let
an
me
eye on
know that I had just blown out my right rear tire. Or that's what appeared to have happened, that the tire blew out. But either way, the right rear tire is now flat. So got out and looked at it. Turns out that somehow the valve stem sheared off. At the portion of the valve stem where you actually screw the cap onto the valve stem, that portion of the valve stem sheared off. So I have no idea how that happened. That portion of the valve stem is not sticking out past the sidewalls of the tire by any means. So how that portion of the valve stem sheared off, I have no idea. But regardless, I ended up having a flat right rear tire. So I didn't really feel comfortable trying to change the tire right there. It was really rocky and we were on a decline, and I decided that I would just run the risk of damaging the tire and possibly the rim by continuing to try to get off that portion of the trail so I could drive to a flatter portion of the trail where it would be a little bit safer to change the tire. I'd rather try and get somewhere safe, and even if it means destroying a sidewall or destroying a tire or damaging a rim, I'd rather just go ahead and damage a rim and damage a sidewall than try to change a tire in an area like that where it's just all rock, completely uneven area. It just didn't seem safe to me. I mean, I'm sure we could have done it. I'm sure a lot of people would have done it, but I was going to do it there. So, yeah, I just tried to be as careful as I could and tried to work my way out of this area, off this decline,
What, babe?
and drove to an area that was flat so we could get this tire off and put the spare on. So we're going to get to that area real soon. It didn't look like it damaged. I didn't know if I damaged the sidewall at all driving off, but it didn't look like I had damaged the rim at all. And after getting home, I ended up taking the Jeep to a tire shop, and I had them just rotate the spare onto the wheel that had the blown out tire because it needed to be rotated anyway, and I didn't trust that sidewall anymore. And then the tire that had gone flat, I just rotated out to the spare for now. I plan on replacing the tires and wheels pretty soon anyway, but they still have a fair amount of tread on them, and I don't just want to throw them away. So anyway, we're going to pull over here and do a tire change, and then we'll be back on our way shortly. All right, so that was the first time I ever had to change a tire out on the trail. It went really well, really smooth, no issues at all. Got the spare on, and we continued on our way. So again, we're headed to the intersection of Sherman Pass 4x4 trail and the Corral Meadows Trail. And the rest of the trail, there were some more rocky areas, not quite as bad as that part that we went through, but there were still a few more areas where I kind of had to be a little extra careful now because I didn't have a spare anymore. So we just took our time and kept working through the trail. There was another group. This is a good time to mention that. So the Bakersfield Trailblazers, we went in two different trailheads to clear the trails up in this area. Half of our group went up the Sherman Pass trailhead. We entered from that trailhead. The second half of our group, which was the group that I was in, we actually drove up to the North Meadows trailhead and went in on the North Meadows trailhead. And both our groups worked toward the intersection of the Sherman Pass Trail and the North Meadows Trail, where we all met up for lunch and had lunch. At the same time, I want to give a shout out to the Ridgecrest Gear Grinders group, because that's the group that cleared the trail from the intersection with Corral Meadows back to where we stopped for lunch. So there were actually at least two different off-road clubs
There's a
helping
lot
to
of
clear
rock
this
here.
trail, these trails
Even
up in
this part
the
is.
Sherman Pass area, along with several people from the U.S. Forest Service. So yeah, special thanks and a shout out to the Gear Grinders for doing their part of the trail. And again, a shout out to the Forest Service guys. They were
The
great guys
inside
and
pointing
gals, I should
in
say. It
to the
wasn't just
rim.
guys; it was guys and
Oh
gals,
yeah.
and they were all really great people. It was a really good day, even though we all
Yeah.
worked really hard. Um, and it was warm. Being in the 70s is warm when you're doing a lot of work outside, and the thin air was killing me. I am not used to being up at 9,000 feet, so the air was killing me. But you know, it was still a fun day being outside, being away from the city. And again, I've never met a better group of people than what I've met in the off-road community. And the Forest Service guys and gals were just fantastic. I can't say it enough. So anyway, I'm gonna quit rambling and we're just gonna work our way out. We're just working our way out the trail. We did come across
It's
a
like a
pretty cool
war
water
zone through
crossing.
here.
Oh yeah, that was pretty funny. I had just made a comment
There used to be a
that it
war
Yeah,
looked
no,
like
zone.
a
she
war zone
said.
through there with all the trees that were down. It was crazy. And here's this pretty cool water crossing that we had to go through. Again, we just had so much snow this past winter, and now we're getting so much melt that there's just, I've never seen water on that portion of the trail before, but there it was. So anyway, we're just about done, so I'm just going to wrap it up here. And thanks for coming along for the ride. Thanks for watching. And there you go. There's Sherman Pass Jeep
Looks
Trail
like it does.
and also North Meadow Jeep Trail. A little bit of the North Meadow Spur. And then here we are at Corral Meadows. So thanks again, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Crowd.
Hey, Jason, if you want to head out in front of us, that'd be cool. Cleet and I are headed to our campsite. So.
Yeah, perfect. So, right here to get out of here.
Get to the right.
Yep.
Right at the stop sign. We've got horses to the corral.